We've all been there, looking for a little bit of a thrill, maybe a harmless scare, just to get the adrenaline pumping. But what happens when that search for a good ghost story leads you down a path you were never supposed to take? Well, for 7 friends in Lucknow, that's exactly what happened. Their quest for a spooky night out turned into a real-life nightmare, a brush with something they absolutely could not explain. And believe it or not, it all kicked off with this one simple, chilling question. A voice, seemingly from nowhere, that set the tone for an experience that would stick with them for the rest of their lives. So let's set the scene. Who are we talking about here? This story is all about a tight-knit group of 7 teenagers, bonded by that kind of friendship you only have when you're young, and of course, a shared love for adventure. Yeah, these guys were pretty much inseparable. They were all about 17 or 18 years old, and their whole world revolved around cruising around Lucknow on their bikes. So, one cold winter day, they get this brilliant idea. They wanted to do something different, something with a little more edge. They wanted a genuine, real-deal ghostly experience. And their first thought? Let's head to the legendary Butler Palace, a place with all kinds of haunted rumors swirling around it. But when they actually got there, in the middle of the day, it was a total bust. Honestly, it was just boring. No creepy noises, no ghosts, nothing. The place just felt empty. And you know what? That disappointment only made them more determined. They were going to find a real scare, one way or another. And their evening just escalates fast. It starts with a boring trip to the palace during the day. But by 10 p.m., just a couple of hours later, it ends with one of their best friends missing in the pitch-black darkness. All right, so their first attempt was a total fail. But instead of calling it a night, the group decided to double down. They aimed for a place with a much, much creepier reputation, a local cemetery. They roll up around 7:30 p.m., right as that cold winter fog is starting to settle in. The second they pull up to the gates, one of the friends, a guy named Amin, just gets hit with this awful feeling. You know that gut instinct that screams, bad idea? That was him. He absolutely refused to go inside, telling everyone he just felt this overwhelming dread. So he stays behind with the bikes, while the other 6, still chasing that thrill, head on in. So they're walking through the cemetery, and off in a dark corner, they spot something weird. It was this really old, kind of raggedy-looking man, and he was just frantically digging at the ground with nothing but a sharp rock. His back was to them, and he was just digging like his life depended on it. They start to walk over, kind of cautiously, but as they get closer, the man just stops cold. He whips around and screams at them with this terrifying intensity. His voice just rips through the quiet cemetery, and it is filled with pure, unfiltered rage. Before they could even process what was happening, he chucks the sharp stone right at them. The friends just panic, scramble, and run. After they get a little bit of distance, they all turn back to look, and he was gone. I mean, completely vanished. Poof, as if he was never even there. This was the real scare they'd been looking for, and it was 1,000 times worse than they could have imagined. Okay, so as you can imagine, they are completely freaked out. The 6 of them bolt out of that cemetery, meet up with Eamon, and just take off on their bikes. They finally stop at this quiet, secluded spot by a river just to catch their breath and try to figure out what in the world just happened. Now, in pretty much every group of friends, there's always one, right? The skeptic. The one who's a little bit braver, a little more likely to push the boundaries. In this group, that guy's name was Orav. He just wasn't easily scared, and he had a bad habit of taking things a little too far. So while everyone else is still shaking, trying to process what they saw, Orav lights up a cigarette. And then he does something just unbelievably reckless. He laughs and he shouts into the darkness, basically taunting any spirits that might be out there, inviting them to come have a smoke with them. His friends were just horrified. They immediately jump on him, telling him to shut up, warning him that you just don't joke about things like that, not after what they all just saw. But Arav, he just laughed it off. So Arav, kind of annoyed that his friends are freaking out, says he needs to use the bathroom and walks off by himself into a dark patch of trees nearby. His friends, meanwhile, are still totally shaken, trying to come up with some logical explanation for the disappearing man. A couple of minutes go by. Then 5, then 10. Pretty soon, they realize a full 15 minutes have passed. They start calling out his name, but all they get back is silence. And that annoyance they felt towards him it starts turning into this cold, creeping dread. And this is where their night just completely spirals into a nightmare. They go looking for him and find Arav just lying on the ground, unconscious. His body is ice cold to the touch. In a total panic, they carry him back to the bikes, but when they try to start them, nothing. Not a single one will start. So now they're stranded, helpless, and that's when they look back towards the trees and see it. A dark, shadowy figure with glowing red eyes, just staring at them. Fueled by pure adrenaline and terror, they try the bikes one more time. And miraculously, this time, they roar to life. They don't waste a second. They jump on and speed off into the night, racing against the clock to get their unconscious friend to the nearest hospital. So they burst into the emergency room, the medical staff takes over, and after what feels like an eternity, the doctor comes out to talk to the friends. And what he tells them is, somehow, just as scary as that shadow in the woods. The doctor explains that Arav had developed this dangerously high fever, and it came on with unbelievable speed. He tells them, straight up, if you had gotten here just a few minutes later, that fever would have reached his brain, and he would have died. They literally saved his life by seconds. Just think about that for a second. Look at how their night started. They wanted a cheap thrill, a spooky adventure. And then look at how it ended. Their friend almost died, they faced a terror they couldn't explain, and were left with a lesson about messing with things you don't understand. Thankfully, Arav recovered, and all the friends made it through. But they were never the same. They learned a powerful lesson that night. Some lines just aren't meant to be crossed, and some invitations should never, ever be made. So it leaves us with one final unsettling question. When you joke around with the darkness, what happens when something actually answers back?